Back to my YouTube channel. This is Megaman X188 here. On today's video, I would like to show you the most recent update tune on the 2015 Ford Mustang GT Fastback Premium. Now, this tune requires the vehicle to have high revs. This is a high revving engine, which means each of your gears and most corners has to be at high revs to get the best out of the vehicle's power. So you're going in hot at a low rev to medium to high range RPM, and you're getting out of the turn exiting at a high rev RPM. At the same time, having control throttle. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be hammering the gas pedal just to make it happen. As you can see, my acceleration input is not that high, but as you can see, while I'm accelerating, even when I'm feathering the throttle, you can see that the RPMs are high. So to get the peak cornering speed, you have to have high RPM in most of the turns in the Nürburgring. Now, on a standstill, you can get a 6 minutes and 30 seconds on the Nürburgring from a dead start. At a hot lap, this is a 6 minute and 27 second car. So this vehicle has a total of 640 horsepower plus 400 and some foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty decent. But horsepower is kind of like a certain factor, especially when you're running a vehicle with naturally aspirated. Is not really the main primordial focus, but it also helps if you're trying to get into top speed. See how my RPMs are screaming up these turns? Because each gear is individually set in tune for the corners. That's the only way this car will handle. So the top speed that you can get with this tune is approximately 195 to 196 going down the back straight, which is pretty decent for a Mustang of this year. Not bad. There are cars that are faster than it, but it's a really fun and rewarding vehicle to drive, especially when you know how to get it tuned. Now, on to my next point. In order to get this transmission tuned, to get it to where it needs to be, I did mention before that each gear has to be manually set individually. But in order to get that type of, handling capability that you're seeing now on screen, has a lot to do with the differential. The differential is a major game changer, and it determines how you get in and out of the turns quickly and as efficiently as possible. You don't necessarily have to be the lightest car in the group, and you don't necessarily need to be the fastest car in the group in terms of horsepower. What you need to be at your fastest is exiting at your corner entry and corner exiting. That is where the race begins. The race does not begin in the straightaway. The race happens in the corners. So that's how you get faster. That's how you win these races, by being as fast as humanly possible in the turns. So here it is. The differential tune on the Ford Mustang would be 20 for the initial torque. This is how I say it's 20 for the initial torque, 10 for the acceleration sensitivity, and for the brake sensitivity to be as low as, say, 20. Now, that's just that is just the starting point. Reason is because the higher the brake sensitivity, the more stable the car is going into a corner exit. Going into a corner entry. So let's say you're going into a turn right here. Watch. As I'm approaching the carousel, this is like a high sensitivity. So I'm in there hitting the brake, but notice how the vehicle didn't lose traction. The vehicle remains stable because of the high brake sensitivity. However, the higher the sensitivity also does mean that you can become more stable. You get to be more aggressive into the turn entry, but at the high risk of having understeer and then snap oversteer when you come out of the turn. So be wary of that. And to fix that, to induce greater stability, you might want to increase the initial torque. Now, the way initial torque works for this particular car, or for most FR type vehicles, is that initial torque works with the brake sensitivity. So you're slowing down and you're steadily increasing you're steadily riding the throttle, or you're braking and riding the throttle simultaneously. That's to help you induce to get the car to bite into the turn more, with the risk of potential oversteer. But you have to predict that. You have to be ready for that. Now, there is no perfect tune for this vehicle. I tune this vehicle to the best of my ability, to as fast as I possibly can. But to get that, you have to balance it out for this vehicle. Now, I am running on reduced downforce. That also gets me the high speed that I need to be. I'm running about level 10 downforce on the nose and 200 plus on the rear tail for stability. And just for extra insurance, just in case that the back end wants to kick off for whatever reason going into a high speed turn. So here we go. Notice how I pedal the gas. That's the initial torque, because it's also, as I'm getting on and off the gas, the brake sensitivity is also engaging, so they work hand in hand. So that's how you get the car to get into the turn in and out quickly. So initial brake sensitivity, limited differential tuning, as well as transmission tuning, is a major benefactor. But you also have to find a balance for that vehicle. So I'll show you soon enough. See, my top speed here was approximately 195, 196, which is pretty good for this car. That's quite the accomplishment, and I'll show you how I did it. Forgive me, this is my first time, recording voice-wise. But yep, that's 6 minutes and 34 seconds. Could be better if I was a bit more consistent, but I still got a lot to learn about that. So I'll show you right now. So what I'm gonna go is over here. Change back to the Mustang. Here's my setup tune. Now you see here, this is what the differential set tune is at. So braking sensitivity, remember, braking sensitivity and initial torque work hand in hand. So you're using initial torque at level 30 for the Ford Mustang because you want that engagement, you want that peppy engagement. As the vehicle is revving, like revving up and down like that, as you're getting off the gas while you're tapping the gas pedal, the brake sensitivity kicks in, causing the back end causing the front end of the car to bite into the turn a little bit more. So you have that neutral still effect, as if the car has a 50-50 weight distribution, even though the weight distribution on this vehicle is currently at 53-47. Not bad, but it's to get that that 50-50 sensation. Now, this vehicle here is a momentum vehicle. You have to be in momentum to get the car to do what you want it to do. So this is what the setup is. Ride height in the front is maxed out to an 85, and the ride height in the rear is maxed out at 130. Now, the reason why this ride height is so drastically different from front to rear, the reason is to also, of course, gain top speed. The front being lower than the rear increases the top speed of the vehicle, also minimizing what little drag you have of the car. It's to make the car's aerodynamics more efficient on the straightaway. Also helps out in the turn, which also benefits from it. But that's not every vehicle, that's just for this car. Anti-roll bars are set to a maxed out 10. Any body roll that this car has is a no-go. This vehicle's not very content with a softer sway bar, so you need a stiffer sway bar for stability for front and rear. Dampening compression in the front and rear is set to 40. What happens is the faster you're going, the more road force you'll feel. Well, that's also working well with natural frequency, which is known as spring ratio. Now, if you have this set all the way down to, let's say, 30 or 25, what happens is that this increases the speed of the compression ratio, which means the faster you're going, the more sensitive it is to road bumps. So if this is set to be too low, what you're gonna notice is that the vehicle is gonna be a little bit, is gonna lose, is not gonna gain speed gradually any quicker. So if you have this too soft, what ends up happening is that the car would struggle to pick up speed because it's being bounced and being jostled around. The suspension and the chassis is being, bounced. So you want to minimize whatever little bounce you have and put this at 40 for this car. Reason is that it prevents the vehicle from bottoming out. So as you're going into the straight, you're probably hearing like a scraping sound. I'm not sure what camera views you my dear viewers use, whether it be internal, like cockpit view, hood view, body view, but you notice like you can hear the road noise, but you also hear that it feels like the car scraping. To minimize that, you might want to put that to 40 because you might want to put this to 40 because this right here is the firmness of compression, the dampers. It's to prevent this level right here is to prevent it from bottoming out, and also helping you gain speed in and out of the turns, as well as stability. Dampening expansion is set to 38 in the front. Now, reason is being fast is because the thing is that the natural frequency in the front of the car is actually softer. So anytime when you get on the gas, this right here is going to cause the front end to kick up too quickly. So this is if you have this at 40 or anything above the sensor, what's going to end up happening if you give it gas, you might feel that wheelie effect on this car when it's not really, it's not like a wheelie effect, but when you give it gas, it feels like the car wants to just not turn. It straight up understeers because the front, the expansion is too slow or too stiff. So you want to slow it down just enough to have a ever so slightly rise. That's pretty much it. And everything else here, camber angle wise, is set to 3.3. It's more like how I say, a driver comfort. Now, for some vehicles or for some of you guys, you may like stability or instability of certain vehicles. Like typically the camber is at 3. Anything below 3 for this car, this vehicle will not turn. This car will have, if you put this at let's say at a 2.5, this car will have a cornering angle of an oil tanker. It will not turn. So for the Mustang GT, this one would have a 3.3 or try 3.0. I would say 3.3 because it has a slightly better bite. It may not seem like so, but it has a slightly better bite. Toe angle is very important. Now, if you're going to be going aggressive with this vehicle in the turns as you see in the replay, having a toe angle is very important. The reason being is toe in means more stability at high speeds while going into a turn. Toe out means more instability, which means snappy steer response. So for this car, you want more toe into the rear because you're going to be hitting these turns fast in order to get the lap time I'm doing, like 6:33, 6:35, 6:27, etc., etc. So you need to stabilize the vehicle because it's not really a race car. It's a car tuned for the track. So for the Nürburgring, there's going to be a lot of high-speed sectors, so you need to have stability to the rear. Now, toe in the front, I know it seems like, why would you toe it in the front of the car might understeer? Well, if you toe it in just by positive 0.2 degrees, as you're turning, the vehicle wants to bite into the turn a bit more. If you go toe out, it just, the car ends up having a twitchy-like effect. So put this at a positive 0.2. Now, my favorite part of the section is the transmission tune. So you see how most of these are set to almost near even numbers. Now, if you see each gear right here, what you want to do for this car is that you want each gear to be spaced out equally. So each time you shift. So see the max RPM is at 9,123 RPM, and my horsepower band is around, let's see, I get the horsepower band approximately at 9,708 RPM. So each time I shift is going back to 9,000 and change, which means I stay on the power band a bit longer, which makes the car able-bodied to hit almost close to 200 miles per hour. However, you're going to be using gears 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, ignoring 6 because 6 doesn't really do much. 6 is a drafting gear. So let's say your opponent gets past you in the straightaway, right? You get behind your opponent, you shift up to 6 gear as your drafting gear, nothing more. You don't want to use 6 gear ever when you're on your own because the car's going to bog. This is not a low revving engine. This is not a LS or a Chevy pushrod motor. This is a high revving flat plane crankshaft type of engine. So this car's power is always at the high end, so you need to have the RPM screaming. So 6 gear here is right here. This is at 409 kilometers an hour, which you're not going to be hitting. So this is your drafting gear. You're going to be the most importantly, these gears here, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, is going to be your straight up power gear. Fourth gear being your power gear the most because it helps you. It's the stabilized gear. But 6 gear you won't be using unless you're drafting someone. And as opposed to the way the car's set up, I tend to go naturally aspirated because for some reason, when putting a supercharger on this car, it's parasitic power loss. So you lose horsepower to make horsepower. So let's say when you're at the low rev and you're giving it gas, you notice like a lag. That's in between 4,000. I feel it in between 4,000 and 500 or 5,000 RPM. So naturally aspirated, in my opinion, I prefer naturally aspirated because I don't want parasitic power loss as it is. So racing air filter, racing muffler, racing exhaust manifold, brake system is normal. This car comes with Brembo brakes anyway, full racing clutch, and a propeller shaft to get better engine response. So, your power distribution, from the engine transmission to the rear diff is to increase the response, the throttle response of the car, which is what you want. Not every car you need it, but for this vehicle you might need it because for high revving engine cars like the Mustang GT GT 5.0, the Coyote engine it requires high revs, so you need to get that rapid engine response so you can get into your gears quicker. Well, and the brake controller, I balanced it out to 0. This is more like a driver thing, but it's not really significant to the tune. I just leave that alone. Now I'm at stage 3 weight reduction. The engine is completely modded and increased body rigidity because what that body rigidity does is help the car increase top speed over time. So you don't want chassis flex as you're going down the back straight, because anytime the chassis is flexing, it hinders the car's top speed. So increased body rigidity is a must. I'm not sure if it dropped the PP points on this car. For some cars it does drop the PP points, but that's not really so significant. What it does is that it makes the car go faster in the straightaway. Not so significantly, but it's to reduce drag as much as possible, making the car benefit from its aero package. Well, this is all I have to say for the video. I'm sorry if I feel like I'm overwhelming you guys with information, but this is the first time I'm actually making a voice recorded video. So yeah, like and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section if any of you guys want to see more tunes of the Mustang or some other car. Let me know.